from a lab in the state. They claimed that a few monkeys had escaped from the center a short while ago, and that the monkeys were infected with a rage-inducing, highly contagious infection. This mimicked a similar activist group in London a short time ago that claimed the same story, except in their description they had themselves helped the animals to escape and they themselves were infected. In both cases, the scientific community scoffed as no such testing would have been allowed, especially in those areas. The monkeys in the NC area were recovered and returned to the facility a short time ago, which I think in this case another crisis averted, I guess. We were saying, could you imagine if we had two of these illnesses running around? Wouldn't that be something? So, but think no further, because doctors and medical professionals are saying that is indeed possible, that strains of this illness could indeed mutate, as an illness can in all situations. And they're trying to force this issue because the scientific community right now has been hamstringed from actually doing any research on the PACE virus in general. Only 3 scientific viral research centers can even take a swing at it. And that's a big concern for pharmaceutical companies that say it's important to be able to research the illness to create a cure for it. 3 big pharma groups were clear that they had received little to no information to be able to work on any sort of inoculation for this, and have done no research so far. And the counter by military figure had been that this was a highly weaponizable illness, and that they've seen it used in other countries as a weapon, and don't want to have a way for it to be used further with things like U.S. research. So we don't want to create research that is later going to be used against us or against our allies, which in some respects I can't understand, but in others I am very confused. So like I said, it sounds very confusing to me, but that's where we stand with that. So stateside, the problem right now has been that those who reported to shelters are facing huge problems that they are overcoming. In cities that have been the worst hit by the pathogen, they have realized that these shelters are not at the level that they need to be. Makeshift shelters put up in football stadiums and other enclosed spaces are facing adversity such as shortages of water, food, sewage clogs, and little trash removal. It's clear that these places were not made as places to stay for long periods of time. They're made for short intervals. There are few places for individuals to sleep. Some people are sleeping on concrete or grass surfaces. Some boards of health have basically condemned multiple shelters in southern areas, and the concern is that people are taking their own action to deal with anyone in the shelter that they believe could be infected. So it's not just an idea that there could be more sickness, but that people who do come down with some sort of sickness are becoming targets for other people within the shelter. Murder rates in these shelters have been higher than anywhere in the world right now, and there is no resolution in sight. The only thing the government seems to be focused on is maintaining infrastructure, so as power communications are maintained, while military groups go home to home clearing out areas. And it is clear that some sort of structure is very needed in these spaces, but where that energy is being deployed is another question entirely. National Guard forces in every state have reported success in their clearing out efforts. There is no question that in larger cities like New York and Boston, these efforts will be successful. But there has been pushback from rural communities stating that even after National Guard moves through, that they will still find sick and afflicted in their community centers, which requires specialty equipment and other things to remove. And it's become quite a burden for those local communities, even in the case of where things are considered successful. So that's something that we're going to want to look into in the future. Another concern is that National Guard has been allowed to condemn residences, forcing people living in them to leave because there are concerns of infection. And the question is do they have the ability to do that? Can they condemn a structure? We don't know the full situation. We don't know exactly what the structures look like. How they're condemning them, the full story to this is something that we need to figure out and bring forward. But the truth is, if we're going to be honest here, we're not in a martial law situation. We're not at a place where military can simply make rules on the fly and subjugate wrote. It's something we want to follow up with later. But as a channel here, we are paid for by advertising, so there are priorities here. So we're going to move on to the next topic, which has been the priority. Let me get this together for me today. So, what originally was described as a passing illness has clearly been upgraded to an ongoing illness. There has been civil concern over a shooting, which is at, again, we said before, an all-time high. This has been perpetrated at the point of record gun sales, which have been reported across the United States. Nobody has had any place of not seeing some sort of sales go up. What is now clear is that is causing a shortage. There is no way for manufacturers nationwide. They say they will be unable to keep up with the demand in all sectors, and it's clear that some deliveries will just not be made into certain areas. Some areas that have most said that they needed these firearms will not have access to them because there's no way to get those supplies to them. Concerns over the formation of black markets has risen, and ATF has asked for civil assistance in finding any of these distributed illegal firearms or any sort of backyard sales event that would result in people not having background checks when they're purchasing firearms. So that's something that has been a big concern, and again, we're telling people to keep an eye out for it, but it's also one that is going to be very hard to police at any level. But what is really going to be the thing that we're going to see is going to be continued efforts for people in survival situations. That's why we see the sales go up in these areas. And what began as smaller shelter building businesses that began to spring up not long ago has now changed over to a highly desired demand-based mobile or a pop-up shelter system. These are things such as rigid tent structures that can house one or multiple people. Items that are quick, they're cheaper and easier to construct than, say, the internal or ground-based structures that most people are more concerned with. And many companies right now are working to develop something that is easy to sell, easy to deliver, and easy to purchase. So one thing we have right here, we have a commercial from one of these that I wanted to take a moment for you to listen to, and we're going to discuss that.
Ultralight, the top-tier pop-up shelter system, is your next solution in survival equipment and personal protection. Easily stored and moved in a lightweight carry case it can take on the most inhospitable environment. Larger trailer-based systems are also available for those that want to bug out fast. Ultralight is your answer for bugging out fast. If you want to check out Ultralight today.
So systems like this are the new rage, and it's not just among survivalists, but as many come to be displaced in some of the situations we discussed before, they cannot count on being in overloaded shelters. People who are leaving shelters need a place to go, and if they're going to have a place to go, they're going to need some sort of shelter system to set up outside of a National Guard one. These have become pretty much the only option, and the demand for them has been huge. It's something that these companies are definitely getting on board with. It's not just this, there's multiple variations out there. Again, this is a company we know and trust. We did a lot of research to make sure that, that they were ones that were doing something right. So that was something that we had looked into, but the next hot sale item has become solar generators. One of the big concerns has been with noise of these standard generators, which has seen complaint after complaint with little way of really deterring them. And these solar generators, on the other hand, have become one of the bigger options. Obviously, price points are increased when it comes to the solar ones, but many people who are saying that it is worth the cost because of the noise that the regular generators make. Also, the solar panels are easier to place and basically disguise, and the idea of at least something until they can find another source to run some of these other generators when things like fuel are coming into question. Obviously, some places are completely out of gas right now, and being able to drive or to get anywhere is going to become more and more difficult as we move forward here. So yeah, that's a big option, and those in the pro field have very much supported it, and we found that very interesting. So we thought that would be something that would be good to carry on to those of our listeners. Many professionals on the social media area are offering their trainings in specialty offerings such as stealth camping, which has really blown up. Social media channels themselves have seen an increase in viewership far beyond anything else. So it's no longer that you go to any sort of social media thing and see some basically talking head or joking thing like we've seen before in the past. We did see something. There was one channel that had described it as a ghoul bashing event that they had taken place. Those events are no longer really taking precedence. Some media sources, since they had used words that were not allowed to say on the air, had been taken down or authorized to take down. And social media has taken a very bullish approach to banning or removing content that could be considered misinformation when it comes to discussing any sort of creature or any sort of thing that described PACE as anything other than the illness that it is. It seems in the face of limited air travel as well, people are finding ways to travel. And this, as we said, gasoline has become more and more limited. People are looking into other options, and also problems with border security. So even in the face of being able to travel, not being able to air travel, and being able to use things like border policies, we're running into border security, such as National Guard, where people are still finding a good way to get around, and these approaches are the way that they're going to be doing them in the future. So the current network, which we think is great, is there's a growing network of private delivery drivers as well that have said they will take things to different areas. Obviously, pricing on these is very it's coming into a deeper, and I don't want to call it a dark market because it is a market that is very well needed and very well required. These delivery people go into areas that are a big concern, but these are the guys that are going to be taking a lot of the stuff that we're seeing when it comes to problematic delivery, and they're going to be helping a lot of people out to get the things out and the supplies out that they need in their area. So we're going to continue to take a look into that, and we will be headed back shortly to discuss more information on this. Again, this is ongoing. It is eye-opening. We're going to have this pretty much non-stop of some sort of reporting for you, so you guys can get all the information you need moving forward, at least until some sort of emergency system, which has been dictated that at some point there will be an emergency system that comes in and takes the media off the air and begins to broadcast with us. We are trying to fight that so that we can continue to broadcast with you, but we'll have to see how that works out. But we'll keep in touch with you. Until then, make sure you share all this information with those out there so we can help them last throughout this devastating thing that's going on here.